Hello, and welcome to the South Coast Artists Index, where artists, performers, and writers, as well as curators, directors, and supporters, anyone with ties to the creative community, drops by to introduce themselves to you. We'll talk about their beginnings, their vision, their passion, and so much more. The South Coast Artist Index podcast is brought to you in part by Heavenly Spirits, who invites you to celebrate the art of life and creative communities everywhere. Learn more at heavenlyspirits.com.
Hi, this is Ron Fortier with another episode of the In Focus podcast brought to you by the South Coast Artist Index. And today we have another visual artist. And as per usual, I'm going to let the guests introduce themselves and spell their name. That's very important.
Yes. My name is Autumn Liv Cyr, and it's spelled AUTUMNLIVCYR.
Okay. I always ask, do you have any fun with your name with people going, what?
I have too much fun with my name.
Do they mistake LIV for LEAF or LEAVE or something like that?
All of the time when I was a kid, and now I just say it's LIV.
It's LIV.
But my name is a pun, so I have too much fun with that. Especially right now, I'm out of season, but
yeah. And then it's Cyr. So I guess I'll put on my best French accent. You're Acadien?
French Canadian Cyr, yeah. But there are English Cyrs too in the area.
Yeah, but they spell that's another weird one of those Huguenot things there. And seriously, the Cyrs, the British Cyrs, the ones that started off as Frenchmen and ended up in the British Isles are SEARS.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
It's just like
funny.
The coins are actually coin, which means corner in French. Crapaud is crapaud, which is frog in French. You know, and it's a really kind of a interesting thing how that whole thing evolved. You know,
well, it's funny because a lot of these names are really deep rooted in the New Bedford area.
Yep.
A lot of those French names, you know, It's known to be a Portuguese community pretty much nowadays, Portuguese, Cape Verdean, Hispanic. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot of French and Polish back in the day.
Yeah. As a kid growing up in the North End, it was your social status and your ethnicity was kind of demarcated by the North-South Street. So if you lived below North Front, that wasn't too good. If you lived between North Front and Acushnet Avenue, it wasn't bad. And it was mostly the Portuguese that had, infiltrated or immigrated. It depends on the point of view. And then if you went on the avenue, between the avenue and the boulevard, Ashley Boulevard, primarily mostly French Canadian. And then if you got onto the boulevard, you were pretty much hitting the high times. I mean, that was like really considered like the best of the streets. And the Polish were up there as well. There was more of a mixture of Polish. It was very, very interesting how things evolved.
Times change, yeah. Evolution, for real.
Now, were you related, or were you still are, if you are, related to Paul Cyr, who was the genealogist at the New Bedford Free Public Library?
I'm not too sure, to be honest.
All right, because the Cyrs are a pretty tight clan. I mean, I don't think there are branches, but they all go to the same route primarily.
It's really funny actually, because when I was growing up in Fairhaven, there was two Cyr families. Our family, which were the French Canadian Cyrs, and then I think they almost lived across the street from us. There were the British Cyrs, but they did spell it CYR.
They did.
Yes.
That's interesting.
And it's funny because if they're not related to my family, they're probably related to them.
Yeah. And a bunch of them, I mean, they come from, up in those environs up there, Shibuktu or Buktush, they're like epicenters of that. And then, then there's the Acadian diaspora where the British kicked everybody out. and maybe to slide down the coast towards Louisiana. So there's probably branches of the Cyrs down there as well.
Oh,
Tell us about yourself. I'm not going to ask you any questions. I'm just going to let you just tell us about yourself. You're an artist, right?
yeah. Yeah, so I am a fine artist and a musician in the area. So, well, it's kind of crazy because I just started full-time art this year about a month and a half ago. But I've been an artist in the area for about 7 years now, just kind of developing my style and my work and meeting people, networking. And I'm also a busker in the area. So I'll just take the guitar or violin down to Purchase Street and play for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I met a lot of the community around here. And, I really love the community of downtown New Bedford as well. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, it is. It's been a long time coming. It was pretty fallow for a long time. In fact, about the only thing that was really going on was Gallery X. Gallery X pretty much kept things going since just around the mid '80s.
Oh, wow, they've been around that long.
Yeah, 35 years.
That's great.
And it's kind of interesting because the legacy or the genealogy of the creative community, a lot of it goes back constantly to the Swain School of Fine Art, Swain School of Design, which was an institution that was here. It started off as a girls' school, a finishing school for young ladies, and then evolved into the School of Design. And then they became absorbed into what was then Southeastern Massachusetts University. But Don Wilkinson and I had this conversation.
I love Don.
Like, and I said, we got to do a show on this. Well, Don is going to be doing a show specifically on Swain and focusing on Swain graduates. But
that's exciting.
When Swain moved, Swain absorbed the artisan program from BU or BC, which was the beginning of their demise. They took on all that debt. And it just got wobbly. So they got absorbed into what was then SMU. But by the time everything sort of like got, all the paperwork was passed and such, then SMU became the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. So theoretically, if you were there at the right time, you could actually have gotten a diploma from 3 schools. Four maybe if you came from the artisan program.
Oh my gosh.
That's definitely, if we were to look at the legs on the proverbial stool, the 3-legged stool, one of them would be the Swain. The other one would be the Star Store. The Star Store with CVPA from the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth pulling in. That was a bit of a rough go because it was like a paradox. Okay, all the students are going to be coming in, so we'll be able to sell a lot of whatever it is we sell. Well, they're art students, number one.
What was the Star Store primarily selling then? Because I hear a lot about it, but I've never heard.
The Star Store was actually an incredible department store. It had the first escalator in the state of Massachusetts in there.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it was a really cool place. I mean,
that reminds me of the town hall's one of the oldest elevators in the United States.
That is, I think, the oldest operating, whatever they call it, because it goes right up the center of the building. Yeah. So it was, it's a very cool thing. And then they brought in CVPA, College of Visual and Performing Arts. And it took a while because there weren't that many amenities. So it took a while before apartments started to become available. And then once the apartments became more available, then there were more retail operations started to open up to cater, bars opened up, right? So now it's the vibrancy of the community. And then, of course, there's AHA that can't be left out of that mixture. and then you know, Gallery X, as I said, which was really an offshoot of Swain. It was a bunch of the Swainies, as you know they're referred to.
Is that what they're called?
The Swainies, yeah. They started, you know, this cooperative gallery, and they kept the light on, you know. So how did you get into the music thing?
So I've loved music my whole life, and a lot of times music will cross over into the fine arts as well. I do a lot of portraits of musicians, and I do a lot of music themed paintings. And so I've been playing music since I was in 4th grade. I started with the violin in 4th grade with the Fairhaven Strings program, and then did that with orchestra all throughout, I would say, till 8th grade. And then we moved to New Bedford, and I went to Voc, where there is no music program. And, you know, while I was doing music, I was a doodler, and I would draw as a kid when I could. But it wasn't until sophomore year of high school, when I transferred to the visual design program from culinary arts, that I really started to get into the art, the fine arts. And
was Ty there? I believe it was Ty. Yeah.
Yes, one of my favorite teachers of all time.
I've heard that. I first heard of him when I was in advertising. He was like the big gun in Fall River. He came out of nowhere and pretty much, you know, established himself. And then it was pretty cool when I found out that he ended up there. And I'd like to I don't know if he's still there.
He is still there.
He's still there.
Still teaching.
Really turned that program around. I mean, it went from it went from a pretty archaic program to something that's
something that, it was funny because I graduated in 2014 and I started in 2011, and it was one of the most coveted shops when I was there. But I did know that I think 2 or 3 years even before that, maybe 4, not too long before I attended Voc, nobody wanted visual design. It wasn't a main choice, and it was hard to get into.
Yeah, plus they also had that decorating shop,
There's quite a few creative shops actually.
Yeah, but at the time
IT
there was one that was
creative.
There was one at the time that was painting and decorating, and it seemed to have been reserved for students special needs. I guess there's no other way around that. So I guess probably there was some
that might have been a long time ago.
Oh yeah, it was.
That was
years ago.
Yeah, well, there's some things I know because my grandfather graduated from the old Voc, from electrical, which is closer to where I live now in the West End. So it's so funny how things change like that. And because Voc wasn't considered a great school back in the day either, but today I think it's definitely one of the best schools in the area.
It's one of the best schools in the state. They matriculate more students into higher education than what they call a comprehensive school, which is the high school.
Yeah.
So it's grown like by leaps and bounds. It's it's gone beyond the. It once had that thing like, well, if you weren't smart, you go there with a trade, right?
Yes.
And then it got to be the point where, hey, all these people want to get in here. So now that you had to be smart to get in there because you had to pass the test to get in there, my granddaughter Callie went there. She went for medical assisting.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So it was a very, very, very good education. And from that experience at the vocational, what happened then?
So it's kind of a blur now, but there was some struggling upon graduating. I decided not to go to college. I had a lot of life lessons to learn, a lot to figure out. So I went to the School of Life and I worked part-time jobs, and I didn't think I could make it as an artist. And it was like 7 years. I left my
That's quite a gap. You know, they call it a gap year. Well, that's like 7 years. Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's been 7 years
Yeah.
since I graduated. I can't believe it, but
Yeah, yeah.
in between that, I just worked part-time jobs, and then when I would come home, I would work on my art,
Mm-hmm.
do what I had to do, and I started like really developing something, and I started posting to social media, which when I was in high school, I never really used social media. I used it as a joke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One time I was young man on Facebook, and I found a picture of a really dapper young gentleman from like 1875.
Yeah.
And I just used that as my profile picture.
Yeah.
Another time I was I think I was somebody else was lampshade. It was a whole crazy thing.
Right.
So learning to use social media and using that to network was kind of a huge thing for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still learning how to use it.
Yeah, I mean, I was there since the beginning, and it's still evolving. I remember at one point I used to teach it, and I would always tell the students, what I'm telling you right now will be old in 15 minutes. It just keeps evolving and evolving and evolving. And but basically all it is just a fancy device-driven community.
Exactly.
And you can't really just live on Snapchat and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. You got to get out there, and that's what you're talking about, the community of downtown.
Oh yeah, it's my favorite place to be a lot of the time.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just like, it's so funny because I usually go places by myself, and every time I go downtown, I'm almost guaranteed to see somebody that I know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a safe, comforting place. And especially now after during a pandemic, it's so nice to see people out again, and it's just really great. And everybody's always doing something.
Right. I first met you as a result of Don Wilkinson deciding that he was going to hang work in the Poor Farm Tavern.
Not too long ago.
Not too long ago. I think that was at the end of April, I think it was.
Yeah, it was not even a month ago, I don't think.
Yeah. And it was out of a bit of frustration. And then it's like, okay, we're going to have like a quote unquote opening, all the social distancing, protocols, all the other stuff. And the buzz was unbelievable.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was a really great feeling to be
like the first day
around. What was that?
It was the first day of kindergarten. I mean, the buzz was like absolutely.
They let all the kids out. We're taking photos. Nobody knows how to pose anymore, but that's okay. Yeah. You've been inside so long.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, it is. So you sustained yourself for 7 years.
Yes, part-time jobs. I think I had a new job every year because one of them, the first job was painting with a splash when they first opened. That's actually where I met Fitzcarmel Lamar, and I met a ton of other great artists there. And I named Fitz because him and I work pretty closely together a lot of the time. And not only is he a mentor, he's one of my very good friends. Just a great guy in general.
Yeah, he's a definite. And I mean this with all due respect and compliments. He's definitely a character. He's
one of the best.
Yeah, he's a presence. He's an absolute presence. And he
just lights up the room.
Yeah,
and then 3 other rooms. You hear Fitz is there, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. So your evolution from a struggling musician, how did you get into struggling artist?
Well, it's funny because they both kind of went hand in hand the whole time.
Okay.
I had this bad habit of getting rid of projects that I would do, where I'd be like, it's not good enough. I'm just going to throw it away. And I don't regret it because there's no sense in that. But part of me wishes that I had those things so that I could see how far I've come now.
Yeah.
I've always just loved music and art, and they go hand in hand. My first job, I said, was painting with a splash, but busking was probably my first job, if you will. And I say that with finger quotes because,
Yeah.
just playing on the sidewalk, depending on the kindness of others.
Right. You get to learn a lot about people doing that because,
Yes.
of course, you've got the good, the bad, and the indifferent and the ugly.
I got some stories.
Yeah, I bet you do. Tell us one.
Oh man, I can tell you a good, and I can tell you oh no.
Yeah.
Well, oh my gosh, I got the cops called on me once too. That was a good one.
Got the cops called on you?
Somebody thought I was playing in front of the Family Dollar on Purchase Street. This was 2 years ago, right before the pandemic. And I was playing my guitar and nobody was around, so I thought it was a good spot. And all of a sudden, some cop comes down and he was super nice. He said, "Oh, they think you're panhandling out here. I don't have a problem with what you're doing, but you should probably move." So, and it just kind of killed the vibe. So I was like, I'll just stop playing for today.
Yeah.
And then there's just so many numerous times where I've been playing and, I've been able to, like, children will come up to me and they'll be so excited, or adults will come up to me and I get a lot of thanks and gratitude for just playing out on the sidewalk. And it's just a benefit, I think, for the community. It's something some business person downtown, it's something different for them to see in the morning when they're going or on their lunch break. It's like, hey, something's going on.
Yeah.
What is this?
Exactly. I was always thought, Boston has an area like that. Other cities do, where sort of like a busker square where people just set themselves up. There's nobody. It's not begging because you're working for your spare change. You've got a flautist over here, you've got a violin player over there, you've got a guy juggling over there, and it's just kind of a fun thing. It's medieval. What else?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. It's I always tell people my life is kind of like a video game side quest a lot of the time. I tend to just do things like bartering, trading, street performance.
Well, your generation, unfortunately, is the second or third generation that won't be better off than their parents, because there's just so many barriers put in front of you. College loans, for example, the price of things are just insane. I mean, to get an apartment, used to be the rule of thumb was 1 week of pay, a full-time pay, was what you dedicated towards your rent.
That was way back when. I mean,
exactly. Minimum wage at $600 gross, at $15 an hour, it's not going to get you anything.
It's not sustainable at all. And, for a long time, I had 2 jobs, no time for art, full-time job, trying to get art in. And it always would come back to, I don't have enough time for art. Now I'm depressed. And unfortunately, a lot of people around my age have these anxieties and depressions that just, mental health is something to take very seriously. And unfortunately, our economy and modern capitalism doesn't help with the mental health issues. And there's sort of a disparity between generations. And it's actually kind of fascinating as well, because I do think that there is a lot of values and morals that people my age have, and older people have too. But there's a wealth disparity that can make it very difficult sometimes. And unfortunately, some people are not progressive thinkers. They're stuck in a time that I think has run its course.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of good too. I think it's almost cynical to say that we're in this unfortunate situation. And I know college debt is a huge problem. I know there's a lot of huge issues financially for my generation. But there's also a lot of us that are starting our own businesses and just finding ways to use the system to our advantage. And I think that's really healthy as well, moving forward.
It is. I taught marketing because my life, like a lot of artists, went in the tangent. Uh, I was in grad school, and I was actually one of the younger ones in my group, my cohort, because the other guys had been professionals, and they were burned out, and they decided that they wanted to teach, kind of like ease their way for the rest of their life. One of them was the art director for Channel 5 in Boston. His logo is going to be up, it's going to make like 50 years that it's been there. I mean, there was another guy who owned 3 advertising agencies. He worked for NASA. I mean, these guys had career. Yeah, they had careers and such. So I learned advertising skills from them, and it came in handy when I came back north and try to find other income other than working in restaurants, which I started when I was 14.
Oh yeah.
And
there's something nice about restaurant work, though.
Well, there's a community.
Oh yeah.
It's like being in the Army, because you can always tell a food service pro or food service veteran. I mean,
if you've worked in food service, you have this level of understanding that only food service workers have.
Exactly. But your generation and the generation or two before you somehow jumped backwards into the day and age of what would be your great grandparents. There's a different a similar work ethic, a similar ethic and values. In other words, weird things. I brought this up before, like beer, for example.
Craft beer specifically.
Exactly. Instead of like, a 30 rack of Coors is like, it's nothing in a glass with bubbles. Yeah. Why? I'll take the same $20 and I'll buy maybe a 6-pack or and a couple of extra bottles of craft beer, and I'll just enjoy them thoroughly rather than just, bang them back and, So there's a lot of that. And then also farmers markets, finding value in locally.
Yes, a lot of local support. It's fascinating too.
Yeah.
Think about that, because a lot of these almost traditional values of supporting family-owned business and, bringing up the local community and helping people in your circle is in family values too. Like people, I find that people are like, yeah, I love my family. We're all going to get together. We're going to have time together. And it's really nice. And I'm definitely like that as an adult too. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go hang out with my grandparents.
Well, I mean, for a long time, and it's still, there's still vestiges of it. For a long time, our number one export was educated youth. You sent your kids off to college, pretty much you'd never see them again. They'll never really come back to live, because now they have college education, which is totally, and not to be pessimistic or a Debbie Downer, but that degree was pretty useless around here. We just didn't have the type of economy, the type of structure that would support that.
You have to know, because there's industry around here. I mean, if you want to go way back, we had a huge textile industry. We had a huge, the arts have kind of always been around here as well. Fishing too.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of these are trade jobs. Yeah. But there was a lot of manufacturing around here.
Right. And it didn't require a college education. The whole concept of having to go to college. We're having a discussion I belong to this group called the Detroit Fine Arts Breakfast Club. And there was this young woman, mother of 3, and she was presenting her work, and we're asking questions, are you self-taught, or did you go to, the traditional art school route? She said, no, I'm self-taught. And I said, there's really nothing wrong with that. And in fact, there's this almost like this badge of honor now
Yes.
for the self-taught artists
Exactly.
who drop jaws when people say, "And you didn't go to art school?"
Yeah.
And it's not like, "What's wrong with you?" It's like, "You didn't go to art school?"
It's
like, wow,
it's amazing.
they have the bundle.
Yeah. I mean, I consider myself mostly self-taught.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
of course, I have that foundation from visual design from Mr. Paniacal and the other teachers there.
Yeah.
Nancy Ford is another great one. But when I left high school, I just started teaching myself and learning from experience and watching others. And,
Mm-hmm.
The internet is a great tool and books are a great tool. So,
well, let me ask you a question I sometimes reserve. It's like one of the Barbara Walters questions that, if you were a tree, what kind of a tree would you be? That's not the question.
I could tell you what kind of tree I'd be.
What kind of a tree would you be?
Absolutely a Japanese maple tree.
A Japanese maple.
Oh, yeah. Cool. My hair's kind of reddish, so I'm like, it's perfect.
It's perfect. If you had a magic wand, if you found the magic wand in the street, and you only had one wish, and that wish could only benefit the creative community. Okay, there are. I'm thinking of Robin Williams now as in Aladdin, where he's like, when he goes to the what's his name? The conservative guy on.
You're talking about.
He used to do this great talk show. He's a Buckley. Oh my God! But he had used to tilt his head back and look down his nose, and it was like a stiff jaw kind of a thing. But anyway, Robin Williams as the genie went through this thing about clauses and codicils and so on and so forth. So anyway, you find a magic wand, you only have one wish, and it can only benefit the creative community of which you are part of. What would you do?
Oh man, I could do anything. with wishes though, there's often a catch.
Yeah.
Oh, I would say 24-hour creative space.
24-hour creative space. A cooperative 24-hour creative
space? Yes. 24-hour open cooperative creative space.
William F. Buckley, that was the guy. He's William F. Buckley, the conservative guy. You'd have to Google him. 24-hour creative space. That is a pretty cool idea. How would it be managed? I mean, did you have to pay to get in there, or is it like if there's a table available?
Free to the community.
Yeah.
I think the door would have a code.
Mm-hmm.
Door would have a code, and I think there would be cameras inside for security purposes, of course. And I think there would be just blank walls, tons of easels, technology in there that could be used, things like Nikon D5000 camera or something.
Yeah.
Really nice technology that could be used.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd have to sign things out if you bring it outside or do photography or whatever you need to. But it would be really nice to have this open space, because some of us are night owls, some of us are morning people, and we could all kind of meet each other there or organize events. And maybe there's, if I'm really daydreaming, maybe there's an outdoor space attached to that,
right?
For some fresh air and, just being outside is nice.
No, we had
like a rooftop deck.
Yeah, at the University of Miami, we had figure drawing classes outside, which over here, my God, they would call the fire department or something,
Yeah, something's going on.
Something's going on, yeah. But that's a really, really, really good idea. And I can imagine, my God, there'd have to be one section that was nothing but whiteboard, and expo
nothing
markers.
But whiteboard. There would have to be a stage in there.
Yeah.
Something that you could do even like short films and build a set in there.
Yeah.
A really nice cooperative space, open 24 hours.
Does anything like this exist that you know of?
There is the Co-Creative Center downtown.
No, I'm saying anywhere else in your travels or that you've, run across on the internet or.
No, actually, I've never. I know there's like studio spaces.
Yeah, there's Groundworks, obviously, in this Co-Creative Center.
In the Mills and.
Right, but there's
plenty
no
of studios.
True collaborative, cooperative per diem, per hour, per, short-term project bracketed space.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't set up shop there for, ever and a day. It'd be almost like a library where you're taking out increments of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you could also just come and go as you please, or you can say, I want to talk to one of my friends, or like, hey, Kat, I got an idea for a project. Let's go get it done. You know?
Yeah.
That'd be cool. That'd be very, very cool.
It would be very, very cool. And I told Kat Knudsen about the
Isn't she wonderful?
Oh my God. I think she's like my daughter. I mean,
I love her so much.
We are like of the same brain. It's like the most bizarre thing.
She's like my sister.
It's sort of like this mind meld that happens when we start talking about stuff, and we can keep track of our trajectories.
That's really cool.
But yeah, she is fantastic. We're talking about my experience with the Detroit Fine Arts Breakfast Club, and she's trying to create something similar, because one of the things about this cooperative space is the sociability. You're with other artists. You're not isolated. You're throwing around ideas. You're going to, for example, you've got something where it's going to require some animation, and Kat happens to be there, and you're like, hey, could you give me like a couple of tips on how to make this thing work?
Or better yet, somebody's oil painting over here, somebody's acrylic painting over here, and you could have a discussion about the difference between the two, and just a really enriching experience, I think, even if you're not directly collaborating. Conversation can fuel inspiration as well.
I just had a flashback to undergraduate school where we would be in the junior or senior painting studio, and they weren't rote activities. In other words, we didn't have to, like figure drawing. Well, you're in that studio to draw the figure, but pretty much it was like it was individual studios without walls. So you had 20, 30 students with their easels set up, and how people like to mark off their territory. But the
tape on the floor.
Yeah. I mean, the exchange of ideas, and, we were just speaking about that the other night, where there would be periods where it got quiet. I mean, quiet like a tomb. You could hear your own heartbeat. And then somebody is stifled by what is in front of them, and they start tapping their brush on the easel, and next thing you know, another person starts tapping their brush on the easel, and next thing you know, there's this percussive rhythmic thing that's going on, and then people start singing or blowing whistles, and they're blowing off an enormous amount of steam, but it's this really kind of a cool collaborative organic thing.
I almost envy as well, and I'm not a jealous person, but I didn't get the opportunity to go to college, and I'm like, a space like this would be, I think, really beneficial.
Well, yeah, and that's the point, that we're in this, we're corralled together in undergraduate school, and then in grad school you're lucky to either you share a studio, or you luck out and you get your own, and then you have your own space at home, wherever that is. But then it goes through this whole isolation phase, because everybody talks about isolation. And it was a great meme that somebody posted the other day. I should have grabbed it.
Was it a Hopper painting?
No. It shows an artist working at the easel, and it says average every day, artist in studio. And you see, and it's the exact same graphic. Artist in studio pre-pandemic, artist in studio during pandemic, and nothing's changed. It's still isolated,
That's relatable.
Yeah. So
it's so hard, because isolation is a good thing sometimes, but I think too much of it can be damaging.
Yeah, it's true. Let's get back to your specific art. I mean, music is one thing, violin and guitar, and not to demean that, but now you got into the visual art. And so what is it that you, I hate when people use it. What is it you specialize in?
So I have a few different things that I like to do. I have under my belt, I do a lot of commission work these days. A lot of portraiture, which I love portraits. I really do love the expression in faces. I do what I would almost consider spontaneous realism, where the colors aren't exactly, it's realism, but I don't use normal flesh tones.
Okay.
I use splashes of color instead.
Where do those colors come from?
Just the brain.
Just the brain. Do you have that voice in your head? Don't forget, 1 is okay. 2 is too.
I got a few. I'm putting almost towards 10 these days.
No, I mean, you know, I know about that thing, but you know, I evolved from abstraction to figurative, which is one term. That's another thing. There's so many labels, you know. I love when people say, "Oh, do you do oils or acrylics?" It's the same thing.
It's almost really. It can be very difficult to describe my style because I almost combine 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
You know, some people are like, "Oh, that's very contemporary," and I'm like, "What makes it contemporary?"
Well, contemporary because I'm living now. That's what contemporary means.
Yeah. Modern.
You know, modern means
it is
contemporary
modern
now. Yeah, it's kind of bizarre. But you know, some people have that je ne sais quoi pas, that unknowable ability. They don't know how it happens. They really don't care sometimes. Sometimes they know it happens, but other times they really don't know that they don't know. And it's like they capture the essence of somebody. It's like Fitz, for example. Okay, I would have never imagined Fitz all in red, but my God, that is Fitz. You know what I'm saying?
Funny enough, I did do a portrait of Fitz in my style. And it's probably one of my favorite pieces that I've done now. And it's just the colors, because at first I was like, oh, you know, when you paint somebody you know very well, it's almost more challenging because now you have a personal attachment. And I'm like, I know what Fitz looks like. Does this look like Fitz? Of course it does. But it's just like, it was the way I did his dreads, and he had them wrapped around his neck. Yeah. And I put all the color in his dreads. And I'm like, oh man, I want to do one of Fitz with his hair down. Yeah. Long panoramic canvas. Yeah. That would be cool. That would be really cool.
I could.
Or even one of Kat in her eyes, and I would just put all the color in her eyes.
Yeah. And that's it. It's capturing that inner life force. It's capturing that, you know, instead of photographic realism, which photographic realism can pretty much range, you know, it has a big range. It's
as much as I appreciate it, and it's a good foundation, and I'm capable of doing photorealism. I know I can do it. It gets so boring.
Yeah, psychological realism is way more fun.
Yes. Oh yeah. And the great thing about art is you can art versus, you know, photography, right? Which I appreciate photography as well, but it's you can exaggerate certain features. You can almost, and if you do it like I do, you can put color where there wasn't any before. So there's so many different varieties of things you can do, and that's what makes it unique.
Where do you work out of?
Right now I am working out of my home studio, which is where I am right now, but it's not much. I got a tiny desk, I got an easel by the window.
No, that's great. I mean, I once used to do a wine show on television, believe it or not. And people say, "Oh, do you have a wine cellar?" And it's like, yes, I have wine in my cellar. So, you know, it's sort of like your studio is.
You work with what you got.
Exactly.
I mean, of course, there are times where I'm like, I can't wait to get a house and have a little more space.
A little more
'Cause
space.
if I lift up this laptop and show you around, it's really only
Oh.
enough for me.
Yeah.
Standing at 4'11", you got the slanted ceiling.
Oh yeah. Believe me, been there. Been there.
Well, at 4'11", you must be way taller than that.
No. Slanted ceilings. You know, where you get to walk around with your head, cocked like that because you know you're gonna bang your head, right?
The good thing about being short is you don't have that problem.
Yeah. Like that's my daughter is about the same height. So. What do you see in your future?
So I'm actually really amazed right now because I didn't think I could get to the point of being a full-time artist at 25, and it's going well and I'm doing my best and there's a lot of cool learning and things that I'm working out.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really developing this almost cyber surrealist style. So
Cyber surrealist?
it's I coined the term myself. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm going for. I'm almost combining the visual effects of internet's sort of art. There's the term vaporwave, which it's a meme, but it's also a musical genre that was completely originated on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of time, the aesthetics of vaporwave art will combine, so Greek statues with it's almost like a collage piece of a Greek statue, an Arizona iced tea,
right,
and
Mickey
a Nintendo
Mouse
64.
and Donald Duck. Yeah.
Not so much Disney,
Yeah.
but it's almost, I could say, a regurgitation of capitalist values.
Okay.
It's very fascinating. And some of the stuff is just really nice to look at, even if it doesn't really mean much of anything at all. But I really like that style in like 80s and 90s sort of pop art, if you will. And I'm combining that with some of the more surrealist ideas. Dali-esque is what I've kind of been told,
Mm-hmm.
which is groovy. I do love Dali.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's sort of a style I'm developing right now. And, in the future, I really want to have this developed and just do almost everything I can in this style. I have a million ideas in my head for paintings that I want to do. Of course, commissions come first right now, but
right.
as
And you're
soon as
lucky to have them.
Yes, very lucky, very happy to as well.
Let me ask you a quick question. Did you have an uptick in commissions as a result of the pandemic or just coincidental to the pandemic?
I don't know if correlation is causation, but yes, I've been doing nothing but commissions since last August.
Because I remember Fitz telling me that.
Yes, Fitz as well.
Like all of a sudden it's like, I'm not even going out there looking for the stuff. They're coming looking for me. It's like, wow.
Yeah, and I think the part of it is like you get a few and then they tell their friends. And once you have that little bit of business, it's almost like a cushion.
Mm-hmm.
You now have a base of clients and people who just keep coming back. And Fitz and I have this particular fascination with quality. We care so much about the integrity of our work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important too, especially when I'm doing it for someone else. I want it to be the best that I can possibly make it at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's always room for improvement. You can always be better. There's no such thing as a real finished piece of art.
Mm-hmm.
I could sit there and work on a portrait for years if I let myself.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point you have to be like, it's done. I did my best.
Oh no, yeah. I have this theory. I don't think it's unique, the 3 marks theory. The first mark is supported by Picasso, saying that the first act of creation is an act of destruction. So the first mark you put on a canvas, or the virginal space, the white space, that's the first act of destruction, which, because of Zen, it's totally flipped over. You are creating, and to create you have to destroy. And then the second mark is the relationship mark. Once you start developing this relationship, for example, there's this woman named Robin Williams. She must have really loved telling them, no, I'm not that one. Of course, I'm a woman, you know. But she was an instructor, I think, at Arizona State. And somebody said, hey, you have to create an art course for non-artists. And she's like, who did I tick off? So she, it was a graphics course, a graphic arts, advertising, layout, and that kind of thing. So she came up with a CRAP theory. The acronym is C is for contrast. So think of all the contrasting things. Just now when you're going to put that second mark down, okay? That second mark, if it's smaller, well, that's in contrast to the first one, because obviously now was the first mark large or small? You don't know until you put down a second mark. Now that establishes who is who, what is what, right? It's fascinating. And then R is for repetition. So you only repeat things that are important, okay? And then the A is for alignment. How do things, composition, right?
Yeah, fall on the page.
Exactly. And then the P is for proximity. And the closeness of things is another relationship issue. The closer things are to each other, the more related they are.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So it's that's pretty much, we had this conversation with Kat, and it's like, oh my God, we went off like on a rocket with this thing, but it's really all that. Now let me ask you the question, because, we're going to wind down, and I got to tell you, this has got to be the fastest podcast I've ever done. The time has gone by so incredibly fast. It's actually annoying because there's so much more I want to ask you. What would, and I mean this in all of a positive sense, it's a two-part question. When you look at a piece of art, what makes you want to possess it?
Oh man. Well, there's so many different things. So, well, if you don't mind my asking, any piece of art?
Any piece of art. I mean, you're just, you got AHA is tonight, and for the people up in cyberspace, it's art, history, architecture. It's a monthly endeavor. It's the second Thursday of every month. It's been around now, I think, 10 years at least, if not more.
Yes.
And so you're going to be, this where people go downtown to Bedford, where it's like an art festival that happens monthly, and you are exposed to all kinds of art. So you're just minding your own business, and then bang, you see something and you go, wanna.
It's so hard to say, because I think every piece of art is so unique in itself. There are certain things that draw my attention, the uniqueness, the composition. If something is a brighter color or more on the, I would definitely say colorful pieces of art will draw me in more than colorful, high contrast, really nice values in the art will draw me in more than a soft black and white. It just catches my eye. That's not to diminish or say, because I really love the Arthur Moniz gallery and all the pen and inks on the outside. Huge inspiration for me in my pen and ink architectural drawings. So, oh man. And of course, if there's like a familiar face or for familiar sort of subject matter, that draws me in too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And what is it that you think draws people to your art?
I don't know. It's tough to say.
Yeah.
It might even just be the color and high contrast as well. It's funny because there are so many different artists in this community, and pretty much all of us have such a distinct style. And that style is always developing. So I can almost always be like, Fitz did that one. Paradise McPhee did that one.
Yeah, Allison Wells did that one. Yeah,
Allison Wells is so out of this world. I love it.
Yeah,
you know it's hers from a mile away.
Yep.
And that's very, very cool. And I always feel like I'm still developing my style. But like I said, in a few years' time, I want people to know if they see that cyber surrealism art in downtown, it's probably mine.
It's yours. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, this has been great. We've got about 5 more minutes left or so. And so I'm going to ask you one of those questions that, it's a thinking question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
Well, I definitely, it's tough because I don't know what the future brings.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to live in the present.
Yeah,
Not easy.
Yeah, but then again, we want to get philosophical about it. Today is actually tomorrow at some point. So
yeah, you're never really living in the present.
Yep.
Kind of crazy.
Yeah. It's like a placeholder, Yeah.
It's like you can say it's now, but you already said that 5 seconds ago.
I always wanted to write
Albert Camus over here.
Well, I always wanted to write like this murder mystery where there was this weird time warp of like, and I don't even know if there was importance in how many seconds, but everything was off by 3 to 5 seconds.
Sounds like a Twilight Zone episode.
Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
Those were great. I got to meet him. I met Rod Sterling. Yeah, at what was SMU back then. Wow,
that's amazing.
This guy.
I said I wasn't a jealous person, but
he radiated intelligence. Oh my God, you could smell smart on this man.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, oh, look at me. It wasn't
like a pretentious sort of humble.
No. He was like 4'10", maybe.
Really?
Yeah. 4'10", 4'11". He was. That was because you see him on TV. You never know.
Yeah.
You especially during the pandemic, you see all these people on Facebook, and then when you see them in person, you're like, damn, I thought you were bigger than that, or smaller than that, or whatever. But yeah, that was one of the things. So in 5 years' time, I mean, I'm getting up there, and it is a day by day thing. But then again, if I was to go back in time 5 years, I don't think I would have imagined myself to be where I am now. So that makes the question even more difficult.
Kind of say the same thing, because I told you before that I didn't think I would be here at 25. At 30, I feel like by that time I would definitely have really established myself in the arts, and hopefully the music too, because they go hand in hand for me. I want both.
in this community, are you kidding me? The musical heritage here is like, Paul Clayton, like one of the granddaddies of folk.
Oh gosh.
Folk music. Yeah.
Jazz.
Exactly.
Hip hop too.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a great deal.
Even doo-wop
music. Yes. There was quite a bit of doo-wop and some rock too. And a lot of singer-songwriters from around here.
And oh my God, disco. But the Tavares.
I love disco.
Yeah, the Tavares. I mean, oh my, so there's got to be something about this place.
It's the one thing I know in 5 years is I would still like to be here. I don't know. I have a boyfriend, so it's up to both of us. But
you said something very, very important, because just a few short years ago, someone your age would have said, more than likely, I just can't wait to get the hell out of here. And it was like a generation that just like got out of here. There was there was nothing here for them.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot more here that meets the eye. And even just in the last 5 years, 10 years, this place has had such a comeuppance. All the shops downtown, all the galleries, and sometimes they come and go in the night, but there's so much more happening. And, as the pandemic subsides, the festivals are going to come back and people are going to be here again. And I think it's more than just a tourist attraction, which is what it was for so long, almost to the point where I felt like the city was catering to tourism more than its own people, which may be a little sad for a while, but there's a plus side and a downside to that. But just in the last 5 years, how far it's come, in the next 5 years, how far it'll go. I think there's going to be so much more. And, not just the creative community, but, industry jobs as well may come back.
I think the economy is going to go back to a mom and pop economy.
I really hope it does.
At one time, England was called a nation of shopkeepers. And that's really what we need to bring back. I mean, yes, I'm old enough to remember, living, going up onto Acushnet Avenue and being on Earl Street, where my mom and I had lived in a tenement. And if I headed south on Acushnet Avenue, I mean, there was like all kinds of stuff. There's the Capitol Theater where Cat just put up those murals.
Yes.
There were jewelers, there were haberdashers, there were pharmacies, everything you need. You didn't need a car. You did not need a car. And I think that's really what we need. We need that kind of existence where we got sold a bill of, my wife is from Detroit. Detroit shaped the country. You go to Detroit and an average street is like a 4-lane highway to get across, because it was the auto capital of the world, right? And so everything relied on a car, and then people going out to the suburbs because they wanted to get away from it all. And then they realized when they needed milk and bread, like, damn, we really got away from it all. We got to go all the way back there to go get the milk and bread,
Yes.
That kind of thing, So thank you so much. I'd love to have you back on the show again, because I think, again, it went by too fast.
It was fast, but it's been a pleasure talking to you. I know we only met briefly once before,
but I think there's so much more to excavate, and that's a good thing. And I always tell people, this is not a one and done. If something new or exciting is going to happen in your life, let me know, and I'll try to get you slotted, because I try to build up a backlog of these in case something happens and I can't do it. But the whole idea is to have a document, a record of your life, even for this 1 hour. Today is actually kind of a somber day, because today's Throwback Thursday, and podcast 18 is a friend named Dan Logan, who was a photographer and a writer. And during the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was like hunkered down. Everybody didn't want to go out. And then I had a chance to go out with the dog, and I thought I saw him on the Hurricane Dike in Fort Phoenix, where I first met him, photographing the fishing boats. And I saw this guy in the rock. I could see the camera and I could see the back. I said, Dan. And he's like, no. Have you seen Dan? And it was another photographer friend of his. And I said, no. He said, well, you didn't know? I said, no. No what? Dan died.
Oh, no.
And my plans, when I saw it, I was like, oh, I'll be able to get to talk to him, because he's like you, has two sides to him. He's also a writer.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I got to do the photography side, but I wanted to do the writing side. And that really drove home this point. It's like, this is so important.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, thank you. Yeah, but that's what this is all about. And someday you, Autumn, will, in that 5 years, you'll go onto the website and you'll go, oh my God, I said that 5 years ago.
For me, it's like when there's anything recorded of me, mm-hmm. I always think I sound so goofy on recording.
Well, with sinuses and allergies and, the Boston, well, actually,
you're all cold and warm at the same time.
Right. And everybody, a lot of people think, gee, I only lived in New York for the first 6 years of my life. But there are people who say, are you from New York? So you just never really know, right?
That's true.
It's
some people actually think that I'm from England. I don't know why. No. I get that vibe because you have this and I mean this with all due respect and love and affection. You do have a prim and proper, and I don't mean that in that stiff neck. You have a presence. Posh.
No, well, yeah, you're a bit posh, and it's kind of cool.
I don't know if you know Art Tebbets, but
oh yes.
I used to do the open mics at the Cafe Arpeggio, and I got in a lot of trouble for calling him sir.
Yeah.
It's just a respect thing, and
I think Art was an art student a year or two ahead of us at SMU.
Really?
I believe so. And if I'm correct, he decided that they were going to do a live drawing session in the engineering building, which was only a year or two old. You could still smell the cement curing, and it was, back then they referred to it as Group 2. And boy, did the engineering students. It was so everybody makes their mark somehow.
Oh yeah.
Autumn, this has been great. I'm going to wrap it up and hold on, okay?
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
This is Ron Fortier again. I'd like to thank our guest, Autumn Liv Cyr. And this has been delightful. I don't think I've used that word in over 80 podcasts. But with that in mind, thank you so much for joining us. Be kind to each other out there. Please thank our sponsors, Heavenly Spirits. They're importers of fine French spirits from France, Cognac, Armagnac, and such. And without further ado, thanks so much, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Bye-bye.
We'll see you next week for another episode of the South Coast Artist Index podcast. The South Coast Artist Index podcast is brought to you in part by Heavenly Spirits, who invites you to celebrate the art of life and creative communities everywhere. Learn more at heavenlyspirits.com. To learn more about the South Coast Artist Index, visit theartistindex.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Be the artist you believe you are, and let's take care of each other out there.